Who's the biggest loser your son/daughter has dated? Not my kid, but my brother. He dated this crazy possessive chick who once buried one of his shirts because another girl complimented him on it in front of her. She also totaled his car after lying and saying she had gotten her license back. She gave $400 to a fake iPhone scammer website Western Union because they are a legit company. I saw pictures of their warehouse and everything. I googled warehouse. The picture on their site was the first one that came up. She even paid $100 more to expedite through customs when the delivery didn't arrive when expected. And the pie said yeah registered sign insistence she killed his dog. She left at 7 PM on the coffee table and he chewed up the bottle. By some miracle no pills got out and crisis averted. It was explained to her that the pills would be fatal to the dog. She bought another bottle and left it on the coffee table again. This time dog ate half the bottle and his kidneys failed. Sucks because he was the sweetest smartest dog I've ever known. TLDR. Bro dated a girl that killed his car and dog. My husband's cousin was married to a man who cheated on her for months and then moved his mistress into their home and tried to convince his wife that they could all be lovers together. He also got into the illegal pot dealing game after Colorado legalized weed. Kid tried to make me think he didn't know what a potato was. My sister dated a guy who lied about being a Navy SEAL. Apparently there is like a whole community of people who do that. Just go around unemployed living on, telling their souls when they disappear for weeks at a time that they were deployed. It never made any sense to us. And she broke up with him for other reasons and gets really pissed off if anyone mentions the relationship happened. He was a creepy dude who took advantage of her trusting nature and that she was at a low point in her life. And I regret not doing more to call him out on his obvious bullet. He's still in the area doing God knows what. Probably trotting out the same crap to new women. I hope one day he gets his ass beat by a real Navy SEAL. My really quite intelligent daughter once dated a lad who didn't know the difference between the sun and the moon. Not joking. Edit. To clarify slightly, ages. My daughter was 18 and the lad was 20. He thought the moon glowed because it was the same as the sun, i.e. a ball of nuclear fire. Although I imagine he knew it wasn't as hot. He had no idea at all that the moon was reflecting light. He came from a family of people who saw very little point in education. His mother had never worked. None of his family worked. He didn't work. He was actually a nice lad, but difficult to converse with due to his very low level of education. My brother is currently dating and engaged to one of the worst people I've ever met. She is manipulative and controlling. She likes to do itty, mean things, and when confronted will act completely innocent and play the victim. And she has on several occasions made up stories and lied for the sole purpose of causing chaos. She almost destroyed my other brother's marriage. His wife is her best friend and has all but ruined my brother's relationship with our mom and other sister. I really think she is entertained by the misery she causes. The best part of all of it, they are getting married in 11 days. My sister is dating a guy who is an asshole to everyone he meets, but cries when you give it right back to him. He is also an enabler to her depression and anxiety. Instead of trying to encourage her to fix herself, he tells her that she doesn't need to and he will do it for her. Not my daughter but my niece. When she was 14 she met a dude on the internet who was 22 and from across the country. We were not happy. He came to visit and he was the weirdest dude I ever met. I was only 4 years older and tried to have conversations with him but he was just monosyllabic. Exactly the kind of dude who you would expect to hit on 14-year-olds in anime forums on the internet. Of course we watched them like a hawk and they were never left alone together. I still admire my sister. She firmly put down the rules. No being alone together. No sleeping in the same room etc. But never said anything against the relationship. The whole thing ended pretty much right after his visit. If my sister had forbidden it I am sure it would have gone on much longer. Edit. I get this is a thing people feel very strongly about. My niece was and is safe. You wanna disagree about how the situation was handled. That's cool. But personal attacks are really unnecessary. Also since people keep saying it, in my country the age of consent is 14. Nothing illegal happened so we couldn't go to the police. My sister dated a guy, let's call him Tom, who worked under my dad at the business he owns and runs. Now I'm not saying Tom was a loser because worked for our family. My sister and I both work in similar positions and that's how they met. But there were a number of instances that just shouted, "Hey, what's up, I'm Tom and I'm a loser." For example, Tom seemed to never have any money, usually blaming things like his rent being too high or his car needing to be worked on. Due to this, my sister ended up having to pay for the majority of the dates and dinners that they went on. In reality, he had spent most of his money on unnecessary toys like dirt bikes, guns, and modifications for his 1999 Honda Civic. His spending habits got so bad that his landlord threatened him with eviction. This tore my sister up. Not because he was getting evicted, but because she knew that he was making enough money to never be in that type of situation. Anyway, Tom got the bright idea to ask her and my father for the rent money, $650, while they were out to dinner. My dad ended up helping him out so he wouldn't go homeless. But what he didn't know was that Tom had asked him for more money than what his rent was so he could go out and spend it on other things other than my sister. So yeah, he was a loser and I didn't like him much. Obligatory not a son or daughter scenario. But my older brother dated a girl who pretended that she broke all of her bones in a car wreck. She put both of her arms in slings, put braces on her legs, and a travel pillow around her neck. Remember her asking her about her back, if all of her bones were broken anyway, and she started to cry. Lol, they didn't last long. My sister is married to a guy who has 2 swastikas tattooed on his back. Nuff said. Edit. He got them while in prison when he joined the Aryan Brotherhood. He definitely isn't Buddhist. My wife and I have very limited contact with our daughter because of the guy she was dating and now ended up marrying. Our ability to intercede was limited because she had moved to the other side of the country, ultimately ending up in Alabama. It's painful and incredibly unfortunate, but we are just holding out hope that someday things turn around and she opens her eyes. Our daughter was staying with a friend, and she began dating this guy she met while working. She always struggled with showing or expressing gratitude, and she had a falling out with her friend of 10 years, who felt like she was being taken advantage of. Our daughter wouldn't pay rent and did nothing to help out around the house. Friend had a new marriage and a new baby also, and so our daughter was asked to leave. She lived with her manager until they also had a falling out, resulting in her quitting her job also. This caused her to move in with her BF, who we'll call Tim. Tim lived in a trailer on the same plot of land his parents and grandparents lived on, and was likely a drug dealer. He had been in the army for a few years before getting dishonorably discharged for drug use. Given that my wife and I are both army veterans, his "I'm a proud veteran" attitude was additional reason to dislike him. He had no real job, which would be a trend. They ultimately got engaged once our daughter became pregnant. We were then contacted by a woman who wanted to warn us about Tim. Turns out, she was his wife. They had been married years earlier, had a kid together, and Tim was refusing to sign the divorce papers. She informed us that he was emotionally and physically abusive, and that he had been convicted of it. We checked and this was true. He was also currently on trial for abuse. Was also true. She also claimed he was currently sleeping with his 15-year-old cousin who lived in one of the trailers on the family lot. No evidence other than circumstantial he's oppose evidence. My wife immediately called our daughter to tell her this and to try and let us buy her a plane ticket back to our house so she could get back on her feet. Turns out, our daughter knew about all of it and refused to believe any of it was true. He wasn't dishonorably discharged, she said. We sent the picture of the DD-214 his wife had. He wasn't an abuser. We sent the court case and local news article. He was on trial, but there was no way he had raped anyone. Case was ultimately dismissed last year when the witness decided they didn't want to testify. She said she'd come for a visit, but only if she was allowed to bring Tim. We showed her texts from Tim to his wife saying he was only with our daughter for the money. She had been begging money off relatives, though we had stopped giving at that time, and all have stopped now after we talked to them. We also showed her his Tinder and Facebook profiles where he was attempting to pick up other women. Nothing made a difference. He had the baby a few months later. We were going to go out for the birth, but we told our daughter we wouldn't go onto their family trailer park. Tim knew what we thought of him now and apparently made threats toward us. We told her we'd come out and stay in a hotel, and we could visit her there. She refused and said Tim wouldn't let her do that. If we wanted to see our grandchild, it would have to be at their trailer. we decided not to go out for the birth, which tore my wife apart. Our other daughter has not spoken to her sister since that day. Everything seemingly came to a head when our daughter called us out of the blue one afternoon. Apparently Tim had gotten angry and she was scared for her safety. We immediately booked a flight for her and our daughter arranged for a neighbor to take her and the new baby to the airport. We then could not get a hold of her for several hours. So my wife called the local police to do a health and welfare inspection. The officer had our daughter call us from his phone. Apparently, he had found out what was happening and smashed her phones and would not let her leave. The neighbor now refused to be involved, so a former soldier of my wife's offered to drive out and pick her up. As he happened to be a police officer about 2 hours away, the other officer waited for him to arrive. Once our friend arrived, our daughter had changed her mind and refused to leave. Nothing we could do changed her mind, and she is still there. Tim still doesn't have a job. They are now married and she just gave birth to another grandchild. Tim insisted that she go back to work the week after, since he cannot get a job due to his record. Our daughter sends us pictures, but she is always sure that they include Tim. The last picture we received was him holding the new baby and making something in the kitchen, while smoking. Edit. Thanks for all the kind words of support everyone. My wife is of the same mind as most of you it seems. She avoids any hint of I told you so and we ensure she knows she is always welcome back and we'll cover the trip. My daughter once married a guy who chucked a rare steak at her boss window. While nothing compared to some of the stories here, it doesn't feel great to see my daughter move in with a high school dropout and take a break from college. I'm expecting any day now to hear that her savings that was supposed to be for college will be going to pay off his debt. Funny enough, every father of any girl I have ever dated thinks I am a loser. It usually starts with something along the lines of I don't like your name, and usually goes downhill from there. My sister dated them all. My favorite was a guy who convinced her to have joint bank accounts and stole 6 months worth of pay from her. We didn't know until after the relationship. The dude was a major conman salesman type that had like 4 different get rich quick schemes while they dated. Edit. Spelling. I'm driving my daughter home and she says, "Oh, I forgot to tell Benjamin what house number we are." I'm a mite confused by this. I've heard about Benjamin before, but there was never any indication he was going to come over or anything. Me. Why does Benjamin need to know our house number? Daughter, so he can sleep over. We're going to get married. At that point, I nearly drove off the road, but luckily we were almost home and I drove into the driveway. So this Benjamin was engaged to my daughter, and I haven't even met him yet, hadn't even heard she was dating. What absolute, absurd nonsense. So definitely this Benjamin guy. My daughter's 4. By the way, I almost drove off the road because I was laughing so hard. Edit. People. Benjamin is also 4. He's a kid in her daycare class. Stop being gross. As nice as my brother-in-law is, he is pretty terrible in terms of job goals, life ambitions. He hasn't worked a steady job for almost 10 years or so and is now pushing like 40. He had been a UPS driver and either lost that job or was laid off or something, and since then, he has just done oddball things to kind of keep money in. But nothing has flourished or lasted long. He was going to be a singing coach. He was going to do lawn maintenance. And currently his next big venture is dog walk sitting. Consequently, my sister works 3 jobs to keep their family comfortable and to support my niece. It wouldn't be so terrible if he did more stuff around the house. But after this past visit to their home, I don't think he does much of anything other than sit around and watch TV and maybe make dinner every once in a while. My dad has tried subtly talking to her about the situation, but she says she's happy with her life. But sometimes her tone says something else. Edit. Oh wow. You make one comment before you leave work and it blows up. Just wanted to thank you guys for the kind words and suggestions. Both my family and even my Bill's mother have kind of broached the subject over the last couple years. But the two of them seem to live in their own world. The times my sister has kind of talked with our dad about it, she seems to retract the next day. I have no doubt that my Bill loves my sister and niece, but he also just seems pretty lazy. That being said, I'll make a more conscious effort to let my sister know that I and the rest of our family are here if she needs us. My little sister dated a guy who kept trying to convince her to drop out of a UC school and move into his mom's garage with him. Up to and including threatening suicide if she didn't. It took way too much effort on my dad and my part to get her to put the kibosh on that relationship. Mostly because the guy's mom thought my sister was good for him and tried to fight us on it. If my parents used Reddit, they would probably mention my ex-boyfriend who I dated long distance online from 19 to 22. He lived with his parents, didn't want to get a job, smoked weed all day and did mushrooms for clarity, forced me to avoid talking to others or even go out with my family to do things because he would blow up my phone saying I was cheating due to his lousy ex-relationship he was cheated on during. He had a kid at 18 during a drunken one-night stand and had to babysit her every week while complaining about her grandmother, who was taking care of her because the mother didn't want her. He didn't pay child support, so he had to guiltily take care of the kid at every beck and call of the grandmother. Lashed out at me constantly and would starve himself for days to make me feel bad about literally anything that mildly bothered him. Generally needed a lot of ducking help that he refused to get. I was at a really low point in my life and thought I was worthless and that he was the only one that could love me. I know my parents wouldn't get into my love affairs, but they were absolutely thrilled when I finally grew self-worth and got out of it. I had always pieced together information about him to them because I knew they wouldn't approve. And every time I said more they held back but were obviously thinking he was trash. I cringe extremely hard when I remember all of it. If someone ever dated me, it would probably be me. Brother's girlfriend hit my English bulldog with a shovel because he was barking and it scared her, as she showed up unexpectedly at my parents' house around 1 AM. He is still with her because she's lonely and has no friends or family. Maybe because she's a psychotic itch. I dated a lot of stupid, just plain dumb guys in high school. One of the worst mistakes was my boyfriend's sophomore year told me he had lung cancer because he's been smoking cigarettes since he was 8. He wrote me like this weird journal letter about it. I didn't believe him for a second, but continued dating him for another month or so. He's married with a kid now, so I'm pretty sure the cancer thing wasn't true. Mayo. Blake, we took him into our home for a few months so he could save up some money. Our internet bill went through the roof. I think he played video games. Then one day, Independence Day, he dumped her, all while his clan from Texas was camping in our yard on the way to a music festival. I guess I should have keyed in when he mentioned he had moved multiple times. She says it was the guy that was a drug runner. I obviously didn't know about this and am only being told because he's long gone from her life. I'll be back to find my judgmental ex's parents. My sister dated a guy who said he has a Reddit account. One of my friends brought her new boyfriend to our weekly church youth group meetup. He openly bragged about how he could manipulate anyone into doing whatever he wanted and tried to dominate all of the other guys in the room by proving how much smarter, stronger, more athletic he was. She pulled the plug pretty quickly. My son's girlfriend, she's two-timed on him with one of his friends. Can barely read or write and is unemployed. My wife keeps saying they're in 3rd grade, what do you expect? But I think she's going easy on her. How many other guys came here to see if any of the descriptions sound like them? Not me, that's for sure. My cousin once dated a guy named Steve. That's all the information you need. My mom once dated my boss. She was older. It took me a while to get over it, but I finally did when I saw how hard he tried for her. He then dumped her at a birthday lunch that he planned with balloons and everything at a nice Italian place once he learned the age difference. My sister dated this douchebag. He lived in a house his dad owned and she moved in with him. He stayed at home slinging sugar. She held respectable jobs. He was a general at Ted. Stole drugs from his mom and such. They bought a Ritty Firebird together with her money, but he titled it in his name. When she finally left him, my father and I drove the Firebird and parked it in our garage. Covered all the windows looking in. He would call us every day and rant to us how he was going to call the cops and or kick our ass. After telling a sob story to the DMV, we ended up getting this saint of a supervisor who transferred the title to my sister's name, so she could sell the heap of junk and recoup some of her money. My daughter is 12. You have all given me a really itty outlook on the next several years. Damn it. Edit. Thanks everyone for the advice. I like threads like these for giving me perspective. Not that they are an excuse to be a lazy slob, but to prevent myself from doing irrational things like internally calling myself a lazy slob because I don't have the discipline to do a PhD. Till that there are apparently a lot of people impersonating Navy SEALs. My sister was in an emotionally abusive, on the verge of physically abusive, relationship with a narcissist. She got pregnant by him and upon the birth of their daughter they found out she had severe medical complications. I won't go into too much detail, but they had to choose to let her pass or put her through multiple surgeries and treatments that she possibly wouldn't survive or make it out of the hospital from. This nutjob had her so brainwashed that he convinced her to let their daughter pass away without trying to save her because he didn't want to deal with it. He even slept on the couch in the hospital room while my sister stayed up all night holding her as she passed away. My niece passed away less than 2 weeks after she was born. Within a week of her passing, he tells my sister she is fat and needs to lose weight, among other terrible things, and goes out using the fact that his daughter just died to draw pity from someone in order to get laid. I'm thoroughly convinced that this pose never gave a shit about his daughter or my sister. Thankfully she found the strength to leave him, but still has extreme guilt over the entire situation. Sadly it's always been me who is the loser, dating girls so I wasn't alone and manipulating them to keep them from figuring out I was a piece of it and they could easily do better. It took getting diagnosed with depression and getting on meds and therapy to see how fucked up I was. When I started dating the current girl I'm with I told her, her best friend and her mom how I used to be and asked them to call me out if they see me doing it again. So much it is habit that I don't even know what's unhealthy until I'm told. Also my parents never gave me a good example or a healthy relationship so I'm figuring it out as I go how. An ex stabbed me in the thigh with an X-Acto blade once. Full blade in the thigh. I could see my muscles working and had to pick out the pad fibers. Wanna know why he stabbed me in the thigh? Well I have 2 toes on each foot that are webbed. He wanted me to let him cut those instead. My kid dated this narc jerk a couple years back. He was with her friend first and told everyone this girl was completely batshit crazy and he was trying to help her. What we didn't know was he was driving her crazy and she got a lot better after they broke up. He gets with my daughter, who is no longer talking to said friend because said friend attacked my daughter after being egged on by this guy. He proceeds to gaslight the heck out of her, cheat on her, blame her for literally everything, and make her feel not good enough for anyone, let alone him. She was in a really dark place and he knew it. They break up, and years later he still finds a way to get a hold of her to tear her down. If I could run this jerk over I so freaking would. Probably me. Edit. Oh god I didn't read the title correctly. Not a father, but I've been a father's nightmare before I'm sure lol. I once had a first date with this guy who was sweet but clingy and texting every second. Later on he goes on about future between us and calling me his girlfriend and I ended the date and he threatened to cut himself and blew up my phone constantly. He scared me so much I blocked his number. My best friend dated the worst man on earth. Classic mental gaslighting abuser type. Never made her feel pretty or good. Always compared her to other girls. Told her she wasn't beautiful, sexy, feminine, or attractive to him. Keep in mind she is an attractive, perfect bodied type, who is also kind, funny, hardworking, etc. Most would consider a catch. We cut her family out. Tried to convince her friends were trash to cut us out. If we went out to a bar, he'd be dancing with chatting up other women all night while she sat alone. The kicker though, during her chemotherapy treatments he criticized her about not keeping up with house cleaning, cooking, and for not blowing him enough, while she was literally fighting death. Sick as a dog vomiting. This pose is wondering when he's gonna get oral. She lost nearly all her friends because of her resistance to any advice to get away. Happy ending. She's married to a different and very good man now. Q.